on the podcast and talking horror with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
Oh yeah. I do a like little side series with on Stephen King short stories with Jeff, and I don't know if you know that or not, but we have like a whole thing. You know Jeff Kashid and stuff, of course. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you
No,
caught
I'm
any of those yet.
I wasn't aware of that, but that's cool to hear.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I think we've done three so far, I believe.
Okay.
I have one I haven't released yet because I do every 2 weeks when I release an episode, so I'm a little bit behind right now. But
Yeah.
hopefully that one will come out sooner than later. Yeah, so that's really fun and stuff. Before we get into the horror stuff, man, I just want to say congrats on the Neurosis thing. That is fucking amazing. It made my day when that album came out of nowhere. So that was just fucking cool as hell.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much. It's been definitely a big shift and a great gift in my life. So I'm glad that people have been responding very positively to it and spending some time with it. So thank you.
Yeah, very cool. I've think I listened to it that whole month when it came out. It's like every single day I was blasting that and stuff because ISIS and Neurosis got me off of new metal when I was a teenager. So I appreciate that.
Okay, well, I'm happy to have assisted in that department.
Yeah. So that was cool. It's like the perfect combination. So I just once again, congrats on that amazing album, 10 out of 10. So really love it.
Well, thank you kindly.
Hell yeah. So yeah, man, I know you're a horror fan and stuff, and so far this year is starting to warm up a bit with really good horror movies. So yeah, definitely want to talk some horror with you.
For sure. Yeah, I rarely see stuff in the theater. I live out in a somewhat rural area. We've got one theater on the island where I live. It doesn't show horror often, and when it does, it usually only does it for one night.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the main opportunity I have, and I miss it a lot. So as far as newer horror releases go, I tend to see them sometimes 6 months to a year after they've come out. Um, Even once they've hit streaming, I'm unwilling to pay $20 to watch a movie at home. So I wait until that stuff gets down to whatever, $5 before I invest.
Yeah, dude, I don't blame you. Like streaming services are so horrible now, and I have multiple streaming services just because I watch a lot of shit, but it's getting
Yeah.
to become a bit overwhelming. It's like more than cable ever was now, you know.
Yeah, it's wild. But then again, the cost of everything is going up and up. So I guess it's no surprise.
Right? It's crazy. Same with video games, like gas, all that shit's all fucking
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, we have a mom and pop theater. I also live on an island, but it's a more populated island.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
but we have a mom and pop theater down the street we go to, and they do like 80s night. They play stuff from the 90s, all the new stuff, so I'm able to catch all the new stuff in the theater for the most
Nice.
part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to go to the movies more often. Uh, but the the situation I explained with our local theater, plus just the kind of normal pace of life here is pretty packed. And so the idea of actually like having time to go out to the theater is, well, I'll just say that it's a rarity. Uh,
Hmm.
in the last year, I can only think of one occasion on which I went out to the movies, and it was last October, and they were playing The Exorcist at the theater here on the island, and my wife and I went to see that with Brian, who plays bass in Sumac and now also lives on Vashon where we live.
Hmm.
Um, they do like a horror series around Halloween every year, different movie every night for like a week or 2 weeks, and it's usually kind of the classics. And I'd never seen The Exorcist on the big screen, so we got a babysitter and made a night of it.
Dude, that's an experience. Am I right? I mean, The Exorcist to me is still one of my all-time favorite films.
For sure, top three easily. And having never seen it in the theater, I saw it in a new light, just from the different context, and noticed things about it that had escaped me in years past, and was just kind of floored all over again by what a not just a great horror movie, but a great movie, period.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was well worth the effort to go and see that on the big screen.
Yeah, The Exorcist is timeless, man. Like, no matter how many times I watch it, I find something new about it and something else that kind of freaking me out a bit. Like it
Yeah.
just, dude.
Yeah. The two things that I noticed that I hadn't really picked up on before that were really effective in the theater context. One was the amount of silence in the film and how effective and really anxiety provoking those long duration moments are where there's really just not much going on and hardly any sound. And it's
Hmm.
had way more impact than a lot of scenes where, there's a lot of sensory stuff being thrown at you. And then I had kind of forgotten the scene where they take her to the hospital and she gets like a CAT scan or an MRI or whatever. And there's just the really loud clanks of the machine. That was almost one of the most horrifying scenes of the whole movie. And I'd kind of forgotten it entirely.
Hmm.
A lot of people kind of focus on like the scenes in the bedroom and stuff where she's gone through the transformation. But yeah, that hospital scene was pretty harrowing.
Yeah, like you said, it's the silence, and then out of the silence, like the loud bumps and the sound design was so well done.
Yeah, and I think it really puts you in the place of the terrified child. And in a lot of the rest of the movie, it's the child who is terrifying. But in that moment, just being in the place of the child who has no idea what's happening to her, and then also the mother who's identifying with her child and really wanting to help her and feeling helpless. I think that resonated for me on another level too, because I hadn't seen The Exorcist uh, prior, or I should say, I hadn't seen The Exorcist since having become a parent.
Hmm.
And our child was born 9 years ago. And so seeing that movie now as a parent made it hit in a different way too. Just like really identifying with the mother who is struggling to help her child, feels powerless to do so, and has zero clue of what's going on.
Right. Now I can only imagine. I was well, my parents, I guess you would call them like Southern Baptists. So growing up, I believed in all the spirits and all that stuff and demons and all those things. So this one
Uh-huh.
really impacted me hard growing up. Like, I'm
Yeah.
still a bit of a skeptic when it comes to stuff. I'm not religious whatsoever. I'm a heathen,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm still skeptical of things because I'm like, what if? But yeah, that
Right.
just really got me as a kid, especially like growing up Southern Baptist.
Yeah, I can imagine that being the case for sure.
Yeah. Supposedly I was born with a snake in my crib. So that which is fucking cool as hell, man. Like,
Well, that would pave the way for a lifelong interest in horror, I suppose.
dude, I think so. And also like shit, 5 years old, 4 years old, as far back as I can remember, watching Hellraiser, the Nightmare on Elm Street series that came out a
Uh-huh.
long time ago. Like my
Yeah.
grandma would get me into all this stuff, and my aunt, and like this exposed me all this fucked up shit, man. And yeah, it kind of paved the way for me.
Yeah, you were steeped in it from an early age, it sounds like.
Watching the original Hellraiser at that young of an age is fucking insane. I mean, watching that as an adult for most people can really fuck him up. So
Yeah, yeah, that's one that gets under your skin. And I remember my earliest exposure to a lot of horror stuff and just how certain things really kind of like permeated my consciousness in this very pronounced way. And so, yeah, I can imagine that one in particular being as atmospheric as it is, really having an overwhelming effect on a child's consciousness for sure.
definitely. Are you a fan of the Hellraiser series? At least I know the first two, probably.
Yeah, I know I've seen some of this stuff later in the franchise, but I don't think I've ever watched much of it with real investment. I probably just sort of casually
Hmm.
glanced at the screen. I did watch what I think is the most recent one, which came out maybe 3 years ago, I want to say.
Oh yeah, the one that came out directly to Hulu. I think that was like back during COVID or some shit, maybe, or
Yes,
close to it.
that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've seen that. probably missed a lot of the stuff in the middle, and in the last couple of years rewatched the first two. Um, and I do like them. I think they're the atmospheric qualities they possess are probably the most effective aspects of those movies. Um, I find some of the dialogue and acting a little clunky, but I can kind of get past that to the more and to enjoy the more visceral components of those two.
Hmm.
Uh, and obviously, like the design of the characters was, kind of highly influential. Um, Culturally speaking, and those images definitely stuck with me. And I was thinking about two things recently. Um, Actually, there's three things that come to mind when thinking about those Hellraiser movies. I think I saw those, and I probably read some Clive Barker stuff before I saw his artwork, and then
Hmm.
I saw his drawings, just the black and white, real textural stuff when I was in my early or mid teens. And I really loved those illustrations. I loved how expressive and raw they were. And that was around the same time I think I probably first saw Ralph Steadman's artwork for the Hunter Thompson books. And I saw the Raymond Pettibone artwork for the Black Flag records, and all those things
Hmm.
definitely grabbed me on a visual level. Just kind of like that real stark black and white stuff. Oh, and actually thinking back on it, what's the guy's name? He illustrated the Scary Stories books.
Oh
They were like
shit.
Al no, Alvin Schwartz was the author. Anyway, whoever illustrated those, that was another one that, maybe a little before that, like maybe around when I was 10 or 11, I saw those and they had a big impact on me. But
Yeah.
anyway, like Clive Barker's stuff, I was like, I knew him as an author, and then I was like surprised to see that he was also a visual artist and found that really interesting. And I also, around that same time, was reading a lot of comics, and there was like a short series of Hellraiser comics
Hmm.
that were all kind of spin-offs. And I want to say like maybe Vertigo did those. But I remember, again, just looking at those, and a lot of those visual motifs from the movie were carried over into the comic book, and it was nice to see them in that format too. And maybe that was almost more interesting to me at the time than the movies were.
Yeah.
Um, and then many years later, when I started getting into more experimental and electronic based music, I discovered Coil, and I heard the lore about Coil having originally been tapped to do the soundtrack for the first
Hmm.
Hellraiser. And I think it was, not too long ago that those kind of demo recordings they made for Hellraiser were finally released, and I got to hear those. And I always wondered what the movie would have been like had Coyle been able to do the score. I think it was one of those Hollywood situations where whatever the producers were like, no, this is too weird. We got to get a more conventional score happening here. But
Yeah.
I feel like Coyle would have been exceptionally um, uh, what's the right word? They would have been just the right thing for that movie, given a lot of their content, their connection to Clive Barker, and a lot of the kind of like psychosexual themes that are imbued in the movie. So
Hmm.
it's unfortunate, but it's also just a cool story to know about.
It is, man. And like I said, that would have been like a perfect pairing because I mean, coil and horror go together pretty fucking well, especially the atmospheric, like creepy, cerebral shit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I remember almost more than the story itself, Hellraiser, when I first saw it, really stuck with me. Just like some of those visuals and the atmosphere and the real dark color palette
mhm.
really just like kind of coming back into my brain in the same way that dreams and nightmares can come back to you. And it really has that dreamlike quality, which I think is one of the things that I find most interesting in a lot of film and in horror specifically.
Yeah, that's the thing that draws me to horror movies too, is like the dreamlike quality or the the cult stuff. I'm really into that. Like, this I like my slashers and all too, but I'm more of like I'm more in like the atmosphere, the darker, like evil shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's part of the draw for me too, and the stuff that really feels otherworldly and takes you to another place. I'm very interested in that. And when there's a director who clearly has like a very strong uh, vision aesthetically and visually, and you can tell when they've kind of nailed it. Like there'll be those scenes in a movie where it just really everything is completely thought out and well developed and well lit and well shot, and it just comes across in this really powerful way. And that's, to me, sometimes that's the whole reason for watching a movie and for watching a horror movie. I'm
Hmm.
thinking I'm thinking right now, one of the first horror movies I saw, which was Christine, and that scared me a lot at the time. And rewatching it as an adult, a lot of the movie is pretty goofy, but then there's that one scene where the car is just slowly rolling down the highway in the darkness on fire. And
Hmm.
it's like the whole movie is worth that one scene right there because it really does have that otherworldly quality. And it's such a fully realized moment of vision. Yeah, I'll watch that movie just for that scene alone.
Dude, that's a great scene. But Christine, like you said, the acting's a little kind of iffy in this, but it's just a really awesome Stephen King adaptation. Like his stuff can be pretty hit or miss when it comes to like movies and TV and stuff. But I think that
For
one pretty
sure.
much nailed it.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Are you a big fan of Stephen King or a fan?
Uh, yes and no. I read a lot of it when I was a kid. Those were some of the first books. After some fantasy stuff, especially The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, some of the first stuff I read sort of as my own undertaking rather than the stuff that was foisted on me for school or whatever. Stephen King was some of the first fiction I voluntarily chose,
Mm,
and I definitely remember those formative experiences of reading those books and being truly scared by them. It especially,
oh yeah,
that
dude.
one kept me up at night.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, and I think the first one I ever read was Cujo, which is maybe a weird place to start. And I don't know why I started there, but nonetheless, that one had a big impact on me. The Stand, and then I had talked to somebody, an adult, who asked me if I'd ever read any of the Bachman books, and I didn't even know that, he had had this alter ego. And the first one of those I read was Thinner,
Oh,
and
nice.
that was one that I really enjoyed at that time. And then I think not long after that, I read the first of the Dark Tower series, and that was a whole other avenue that I found interesting because it was in some ways less linear than some of his other books and almost possessed kind of like a psychedelic quality, uh,
Hmm.
arguably the most experimental of his works. And so, that for me became intriguing too, and maybe sort of paved the way for me to start thinking about what literature could be and what kinds of things I was drawn to, just because it was like the first experience of that kind where narrative was warped in a noticeable way.
Right. Yeah, dude. The first book I believe was The Gunslinger, and Stephen King.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the one. Yeah,
yeah, man. Yeah, it's such a different take on what I'm used to him doing. It's like a western, a
yeah,
fantasy western in that first book. Then it goes like horror. Then it's all over the place, but in a good way.
yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
recently talking about this on an episode. I don't know when it was, but I was telling somebody that it took like 2 years. I did the audiobooks of all the whole series. It took me about 2 years to get through all of them because they're so fucking long. And
Yeah,
dude, I
yeah,
was like, and I loved every minute of it. It was one hell of a journey. And then
yeah,
the ending is like, what the fuck? The ending just blew my mind.
yeah.
It's
I
like,
never
was
made
it?
it. I never made it that far in the series, and I've listened. I haven't actually read any books of his in recent years. I've done some audio books on car trips, and I could still enjoy it. And I think he's a very good storyteller. I struggle now with uh in some way his writing is so uh easy to orient in terms of the period, like it's so 70s 80s in the way he structures dialogue,
Mhm.
and sometimes it feels very ham-fisted, and it does take some doing for me to get past that, to get into the narrative. And I find I struggle with more recent adaptations of his stuff for that same reason, because his dialogue is still so entrenched in that era. That's, you know, more contemporary things are uh, don't come across as effectively, because it's like it'll be contemporary actors, and it'll be shot in a way that, you know, is of the moment we're in now, but the dialogue is still stuck in that zone. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of jarring thing for me, where I can't really get into it because of that factor. But the kind of what I would, I guess, consider kind of the golden era stuff, both in terms of what he wrote and the films that were made out of it, still is very appealing for me.
Yeah, the '90s miniseries of It is some of the best shit ever. You know that haunted
Yeah,
me as a kid watching that on ABC when it would come on. Like I had to go to school, of course, and I think my bedtime was like 10. But for
yeah,
that, I got to stay up a little bit later to finish those series. And
nice.
there's
Yeah,
a
we
that one scene where Pennywise turns into like the Doberman. His head changes into
right,
the
yeah,
dog. Dude, yeah, I was like, what the fuck,
yeah.
man?
Yeah, we rewatched that some years ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was actually surprised at how well a lot of it held up. It gets pretty hokey towards the end, which, you know, for me is where a lot of horror tends to stumble, is in the final third.
Hmm.
But the first two-thirds of that series still held up pretty well.
Yeah, and Tim Curry to me is always going to be Pennywise. Like
Oh,
I've
hell yeah.
watched the new ones and like they don't hold a candle to Tim Curry, man.
Yeah, he was a very great incarnation of that character.
Also one of the best portrayals of the devil in Legend and when he played the darkness. Like
Right. Yeah. I haven't
yeah.
seen that in many years. I thought about watching it just a week or two ago, because my son's now of the age where I feel like he can start handling some darker movies. So we watched what did we watch recently? I guess it's not particularly dark, but it's got some heavy moments. We watched The Never Ending Story.
Oh dude, yeah.
We watched The Dark Crystal with him, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I was thinking about Legend. I haven't seen it in a super long time, and I think I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score for it was like pretty dismal, and I was like,
Yeah.
maybe this isn't the first in the queue. Not that I always go off of reviews, but, you know, it's like maybe this isn't the next thing in the queue. Maybe we'll do Princess Bride or something next before we go into Legend. But I do remember his devil being absolutely the highlight of that movie.
It's still unbeatable in my opinion. Like what they did. I mean, I think that was
Yeah,
a Ridley
the
Scott
makeup.
film, I believe, too. Like,
Yeah, yep,
dude, it's
yeah.
still like it. Rotten Tomatoes, they fucking suck. I can't stand their ratings. Man, like the shit I love, they fucking hate. I'm like, they pay these fucking reviewers to do all this shit. I'm like, yeah, I never take them seriously, man. Especially hating on Legend, those bastards, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that with a grain of salt. It's more, sometimes it's like I've got a limited amount of time to watch stuff, and it's like, especially with my son, it's like, you know, it's hard to get him actually to sit down for a movie. So I'm like, I've got a queue of things, and maybe we'll use Rotten Tomatoes occasionally as like a guide to be like, is this worth the time or not? Um, it's funny though, Rotten Tomatoes for more mainstream stuff, I almost never trust it.
Hmm.
But when it comes to more kind of artsy stuff, I suppose sometimes if there's like a really high critic review and a really low audience score, I'm like, that might be the thing for me, because usually that's an indicator that like audience who want something fast paced with a lot of action couldn't handle it. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's almost always when you read the audience reviews in those when it's that kind of ratio, that's almost always the complaint. Is like, this movie's so fucking slow. And
Yeah.
slow is what I'm most often
Yes.
after with most
Slow and
movies.
heavy, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I recommend downloading, or I think you just go on their website, but Letterbox is the one I would recommend to see like scores and ratings. Like Letterbox
Okay.
is all just regular people and stuff that they go in there and rate shit. They're not paid to do none of that. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
use that a ton, and they're pretty right on when it comes to reviews. Like it,
Uh-huh.
yeah, highly recommend that. But yeah, going back to Legend, man, Legend holds up very well, and definitely throw that in your. I would
Okay.
throw it right after Neverending Story, man. That would be a good
Okay. All
combo,
right.
like
All
because
right.
that one ruined me too as a kid. The whole horse scene, like going down into this quicksand and
Oh yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is Tom Cruise in Legend?
he is, man, and
That
he
might
looks
have been one
exactly
of
the
the other,
same.
that might have been one of the other things where I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can handle any Tom right now.
You got to look past Tom in this one. I mean, he plays a pretty. I mean, he's one of the main actors in this, but he doesn't really talk that much. It's more about the
Right.
atmosphere and everything else
Yeah.
going around there, and like
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, he's kind of like sidestepped there. But the weird thing is, he hasn't changed, man. I don't know what kind of vampire he is, but he looks
I
the same.
definitely like drinking the blood of children in some Scientology building somewhere in
Unicorns, man.
preserve
They're
its youth.
drinking unicorn blood.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and there's also a character in Legend, Blix. He's one of the like head demons, I guess, or I
Okay.
guess you call him a demon. But dude, he's so fucking evil.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in quite a long time, so I need to refresh my memory on that one. But talking about other stuff I recently revisited with our son, I was interested to see how kind of gnarly and grimy a lot of the character design in the Dark Crystal was. Like the I can't remember her name, but the oracle that the kid goes to visit, who can remove her eye and
Hmm.
uses that to look around. Like her character is pretty gnarly, and then all the Skeksis,
Yeah,
pretty nasty looking as well. Especially the one who gets disrobed and outcast from the rest. Like that disrobing scene was so disturbing, and to see his shriveled body without all of the royal garments or whatever, that was
yeah,
a pretty effective moment, even as an adult watching it.
yeah. Going back and watching those older movies now, I'm like, dude, we had that as a kid. Like, it's so fucking like pretty scary stuff, even for modern times. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
have you showed them the Labyrinth yet?
Haven't watched Labyrinth yet, but that's definitely in the zone that we're headed with him right now. So that's in the queue also.
Yeah, dude, I love the Labyrinth. Not too long ago, they did like a theater tour type thing with the Labyrinth. We're re-showing it again on the big screen,
Uh-huh.
and that
Yeah.
was really awesome. Seeing that on the big screen was really cool.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I definitely think all these movies that we're talking about right now, along with the first two Indiana Jones movies and a couple other things, paved the way for me to start getting interested in horror too, especially that final scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark with the face melting and
Oh
everything.
yeah.
That was the first movie. It was one of the first movies I ever saw in the theater, and it was definitely the first movie that I saw repeatedly in the theater. I made my dad and my brother take me to that quite a few times, and especially the more horrific moments of that movie were really intriguing to me. The snake pit, the face melting scene, all that stuff, and I definitely think those images left such an impression that I continued to seek out that kind of aesthetic to a more extreme degree as as I got older.
So, what were some of your like earliest like horror exposures?
Um, I don't remember what I saw first, but um, the first movie I saw that really fucked me up, which is funny because I've rewatched it as an adult and it is so schlocky, is The Stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
it's a good one.
And that movie, when I say it fucked me up, it really fucked me up. Like for a couple months afterwards, I would get nervous at sundown because the whole plot line there of the parents kind of turning against the child and being corrupted by this substance really affected me on a profound level to the extent that, during the day I was nervous that, the product, the stuff was going to become a real thing. And I kept telling my mom, like, if you ever see this in the grocery store, don't buy it. And I would have nightmares about it. In retrospect, I realized that it may have had such a profound effect on me because uh, alcohol and the way in which people change as a result of alcohol was definitely a problem in my household. So in
Mhm.
that way, I can see why psychologically it had such an effect on me at the time.
Hmm.
But yeah, I watched it again as an adult, and I was like, "Wow, this is fucking goofy." Um,
Yeah, Joe Bob. I don't know if you ever watched Last Drive-In with Joe Bob or ever caught any of those before,
I
but
have, but not in a long time.
he did one on the stuff a few years ago. Man, it was so fucking good. Like, and then it's a comedy. You know what I mean? It is cheesy,
Yeah,
like you're saying,
yeah,
but
yeah,
man, it
yeah,
holds up so well when you have like good commentary to go along with it that Joe Bob
yeah,
does. Yeah.
yeah. I can see that being the case. Not so after that. So after I saw the stuff, I didn't try watching a horror movie again for a while.
Hmm.
And I think one of the next things I saw was Alien. And early on in that, there's the chest burster scene. And as soon as that came on, I was like, nope, turning this off because it reminded me immediately of when the people and the stuff would explode
Oh
from
yeah.
from ingesting it. So it was like I was like, nope, can't go there. I wasn't ready for it yet. And it took me a little while to actually work up the nerve to go there again. And it was a similar thing with Christine. I was staying over at a friend's house. We'd rented some movies, and the first one that we put in was Christine. And that scene where the car starts choking the girl that the protagonist is out on the date with, I was like, nope, can't handle it. And I had to go home. So, a lot of my early attempts at watching horror were aborted because I just couldn't fucking handle it. So it took me probably 2 or 3 years to go from limited exposure to horror to being able to actually like watch a horror movie and understand that it wasn't real and
Mhm.
not get completely unsettled by it. Um, One of my other early experiences, which really stuck in my head, was seeing Halloween 3 on network TV. And I don't think I saw it from the beginning, but I just kind of flipped channels and right onto that scene where the kid puts on the pumpkin mask and then it kind of starts shriveling around his head and the kid falls over and the insects crawl out. And that was one of those things that also really stuck in my brain. And I watched that scene. I kind of couldn't look away because it
Mhm.
really pulled me in. But as soon as it was over, I like changed the channel. I was like, no more of that. Um,
Oh.
but much like many of the things that I became interested in later years, my first exposure was something that unsettled me and gave me pause and almost made me want to turn away, and in some cases did, but also kind of planted this seed of curiosity where I was like, okay, this really affected me. Why did it affect me? I want to know more. I want to kind of dig into this. And
Hmm.
so, those early experiences of getting truly frightened by horror movies, I think were also the thing that drew me back to them a little bit later.
What were some of those like other like traumatizing ones as you got older that really, you know, got you?
Um, I don't know that there was ever anything that affected me as deeply as those did, because obviously when you're young and impressionable, those formative experiences are the ones that really stick with you.
Yeah.
But there was a few things later on which I remember definitely got under my skin. While this is by no means a horror movie, Clockwork Orange
Mm.
really got me the first couple of times I saw it. That was one of those things where just like the kind of profound psychological anxiety that the whole movie is imbued with, and the way, probably partially because it was, by the time I saw it, from, the perspective of a kid in the late 80s or early 90s, it already had an otherworldly quality because it had been shot in another era. And so just
Mhm.
the quality of the film itself was enough to give it this totally different atmosphere. And then, as is the case with so many Kubrick movies, he has a really great knack for depicting things in a way where you have this impression of it being similar enough to the reality that we all know, but warping it on a subtle level to give it that kind of dreamlike quality.
Mhm.
So you're able to strike this balance between being able to believe it, but also sense that there is some other kind of almost subliminal level on which it's functioning that disorients and unsettles you as a viewer. And I think Clockwork Orange definitely did that to me.
Mm.
Um, I grew up in New Mexico where there's not a lot of water. And I I don't know whether this was heightened because I grew up in a place where I wasn't in water a lot, but I definitely started to struggle with being in the ocean or being in ponds because of Jaws and because of Creepshow,
Oh man.
specifically the raft.
Yeah,
So it's
dude.
like Jaws ruined the ocean for me, and the raft, is that the name of
I
the
believe
segment?
so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And that ruined ponds and lakes for me. I was like, nothing is safe. And it was the effect of both of those was strong enough that even getting in a swimming pool, I'm like, a shark could fit in the swimming pool. So that almost instinctual fear of water was definitely heightened for me by those two movies, and it had a long lasting effect in both cases.
Yeah, I totally don't blame you. I watched Jaws every year around summertime. When summer starts, got to watch Jaws,
Uh-huh.
and I did a rewatch of it Saturday, and dude,
Yeah.
it still hits so hard. It's like a perfect film, and I still think the shark looks good. I mean, a lot of people say it looks pretty cheesy, but I think it looks pretty cool, and it
Yeah.
gets me every time, man, because I used to go fishing with my dad, and we go shark fishing. So before
Uh-huh.
the season would start, we'd watch Jaws. So I'm
Yeah.
out there in the boat, fucking terrified, dude. Especially when you hook something big and
Yeah.
the clickers going off and shit. It's
Yep.
like, oh god.
Yeah, I can imagine that being the case. And yeah, Jaws, I think, as you said, a perfect movie. And yeah, there's definitely moments where the shark is obviously not real. But again, as is the case in so many movies and stories, those moments where you know the thing is there, but it's not fully revealed are so effective. And
Hmm.
that was really what got me in that movie. I mean, the full exposure too was also horrifying for me at a young age, but really just those things of like the underwater shots from the shark's perspective, just the fin coming out of the water, the detached limb, uh,
Hmm.
floating down to the bottom with the plume of blood. That stuff was I thought probably more horrifying than anything else.
Yeah, the whole less is more thing, that's what gets me. Like
Yep.
whenever the creature's exposed, like first part of the movie, see the whole creature, that just takes it out for me. And I like to be
Almost always.
surprised. Yeah.
Almost always. An exception being the thing where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
all the permutations of the creature are so satisfying, and it's almost about this exposition of the most outlandish creature they could possibly come up with that make it work. But that's a totally different thing for me. That's almost like it's not quite in the realm of comedy because it is pretty in some way viscerally repulsive, but to
Hmm.
me, that's a different kind of thing than what we're talking about, the horror of the unseen presence.
Yeah. But like I said, with the thing though, if you are gonna do like the monster right up front and personal, that's the way to do it. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That one and also the very first Pumpkinhead movie. I know they show a lot of Pumpkinhead in that movie, and
Uh,
so well done. That's one that got me as a kid. Like that's such a dark, fucked up movie.
yeah, I don't think I ever saw it, or if I did, I only saw it in bits and pieces. Um, but going back to Hellraiser, obviously the monsters in that are revealed at length, and they don't lose any of their effectiveness by that repeated exposure.
No, they're still just as terrifying the first time you see them as the last time. And
For sure.
that kept me like checking my closets for many years to come because they come like they're coming out the closet and the
For
walls, man. It's
sure.
like, dude,
Yep. Yep.
uh, oh no, what is your take on Child's Play? Did that one get you too at being
It
younger,
fucked me up, man.
dude?
That's funny you mentioned that because I don't
Yeah,
think that one as much, but definitely that one fucked me up for my toys. I'm like, I gotta
same.
put these things away.
That
I got
fucking
might
My
have them
Buddy
in another
doll,
room. What's that?
the My Buddy doll. Did you have one of those growing up?
No,
It looked just like Chucky. It was out before Chucky was out. I guess they might have did this shit on purpose, but having the My Buddy doll, like, and after seeing Child's Play, fucking
Yeah.
terrified me for years, man. I buried that fucking thing in the closet under all these clothes and stuff. I would dream about it coming out the closet with a knife. Like
Yeah.
Child's Play, that got me.
Yeah. Yep. Got that. That got me too. One that I saw a little later, probably when I was maybe 14 or 15, was Necromantic. I was at my friend's house, and he was really into movies. His dad was a science fiction author. He had an older brother who was really into movies, so he knew about a lot of the obscure shit that, nobody else I knew about. And he put that on, and I'm like, what
Oh
the
man.
fuck is this? This is terrifying. And even at that age, I was like, I wanted to be, I want to be tough and impress my friend, but I
Mhm.
think I was like, Trent, you got to turn this off, man. This is messing with me.
That's really heavy stuff, especially as like a teen or whatever. That's heavy
Yeah,
as an adult, man. That's definitely not your mainstream horror there. That's some yeah, dark shit.
yeah, for sure. And I got the soundtrack for that when it was issued on vinyl. That was probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And even listening to the soundtrack, I was like, man, this is the music itself is so unhinged,
Mhm.
uh, that yeah, that alone was enough to make me feel unsettled as a 40, however old I was when I got that, a 41-year-old.
Mhm. And brings back all those memories.
Yes, for sure. And
Yeah.
actually, I bought a DVD of Necromantic, I think, right after I got that soundtrack, and I still haven't been able to bring myself to watch it.
Man, there's a film like that it's not horror, but it has a lot of horror elements, and it's just so fucked up. And it's a one and done film for me. I bring this up a lot, man, because it traumatized me as an adult. But that was the first time I ever saw Gummo when I was probably in my
Oh shit,
30s.
yeah, that's a great
God,
movie.
man,
Yeah.
what the
Yep.
fuck?
Yeah, and for me, the much like the definition of heaviness in music, the definition of what is horrifying and what is horror for me is pretty broad. And there's certainly some things which I think wouldn't be categorized as horror, but are for me as horrifying as any monster movie I've ever seen, or slasher or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, Gummo tops that category for me, man. The animal killing is what got me. Was the
Yeah,
biggest thing. Like
yeah,
and that supposedly some of that might have been real from what I was
yeah.
reading about. Because Harmony does some crazy shit in his films, and yeah, I was like, all right, I understand this is a good movie and stuff, but I can't. I'm done now. This is the only time I'm ever going to watch this shit again.
For
It's a good
sure.
movie, but it's
Yeah.
heavy, man.
Yeah, I feel that way about some stuff I've seen too, where I'm glad to have seen it and I never need to see it again.
Yeah, definitely. Besides extreme horror, there's a film that I think came out in their early 90s. Yeah, I think it was early 90s that really fucked me up, man. Like nightmare type stuff. Nothing gory, nothing like that. But City of Lost Children.
Oh,
Have you ever
right.
seen that?
Yeah. I have seen that. I saw that when I was probably in my late teens or early 20s. And by that point, I don't think it had that kind of effect on me, but I did think it was a visually really impressive movie.
It was first time I saw that was in my 20s. It was after a band practice and it was like 2 in the morning. So I'm like half in, half out. I'm so tired, but I'm like, this movie's so good. So it
Yeah.
really played on that like that half in and half out thing. I was like, what did I just watch, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the ones that get me. Like, that's a good one. What are some of your like more recent, I guess. I know you said you don't get to the theater much or anything, but what are some of your most like recent favorite horror movies or just heavy dark films?
It's interesting because this is kind of was all in my feed a few weeks back ago because of a remake that's being made, but I just saw Possession for the first time
Oh, hell yeah, dude. That's a great one.
uh, maybe about 2 months ago on the recommendation of a friend. I can't remember who it was. Um, and that one was amazing. I think
Yeah.
that's a really underrated picture. And maybe I know there's a lot of, it does have that cult status, but I'd never even really heard of it until someone called it to my attention.
Hmm.
But just like the anxiety of that entire movie and the closeness of the shots and all the rooms of those houses and apartments is really provocative. And that actress whose name now escapes me, her performance is unreal. She's such a great character in that movie. And one of the things I struggle with in a lot of horror movies is bad acting, and I can kind of look past that and enjoy creature design or gore and things like that. But when a movie is able to be both effective as a horror movie, but it's also well written or well shot or well acted, that really can put it over the top for me. And she definitely her performance in that and that scene in the subway
Oh,
really
dude, yeah.
really was something else. Sam Neill, a very young Sam Neill, not as good. His character was not as believable, but it's fine.
Isabella Johnny was her name.
Yeah,
I don't, yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely,
And
yeah.
I didn't realize this until later. I was like, I know I've seen her somewhere else. And then I realized a little bit later she was in Herzog's Nosferatu, which has also
Yeah,
become
dude.
a favorite of mine.
Love that one.
But anyway, that I thought that was great. And also, per our remarks a few minutes ago about creatures being revealed, when the creature at the end is fully revealed, it's like, okay, that's a dude in a rubber suit. It's still kind of cool. But
Yeah.
the first intimations of that creature's existence, where it's just like a shadowy presence in a bathroom, are fucked, man. It's
Yeah.
so unsettling. And it's rare for me to find a movie that portrays something that is a lot like dreams I've actually had, but that really was pretty close to some nightmares that I've had. Just those scenes of kind of the far away shots or like the shadowy shots of this presence. And so I found that pretty affecting also. Um, I recently watched two Japanese horror movies. One is from the 60s, I think, Onibaba,
Mm.
about this woman who kind of waylay samurai and dispatch them and sell their armor and kind of are scraping by that way. And then I don't need to go into what the storyline was, but I thought that that was a really great movie.
Yeah.
And also like what I was saying earlier, I appreciate stuff on the slow side, and a lot of Japanese cinema, especially on from the 60s and 70s, is extremely slow, and I love like those long duration shots of the environmental scenes where it's just like grass is blowing in the wind, and in that
Hmm.
movie just the nocturnal scenes of the protagonist, the female lead, and her, I think it was her mother-in-law, kind of going back and forth through all the bamboo and the really stark lighting, I thought was really beautiful. Um, and I watched, I'm not sure if it's Cure or The Cure.
Oh,
uh,
yeah, Cure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd never seen that before. And I loved that as well. Again, really slow pacing. And in some way, it kind of reminded me of uh, what I appreciate about some David Lynch stuff, where it's like, some of it is almost dreamlike, but also absurd in a way. And there's an element of humor in that movie that's really kind of underplayed, but really effective. It definitely doesn't become slapstick or too goofy.
Hmm.
But it's also nice to have that levity in conjunction with the rest of the storyline. Um, and I think some Japanese horror really appeals to me because uh, it doesn't have that more conventional linear narrative in a
Right.
really obvious way. And so again, harkening back to, things that exemplify the dream world or an otherworldly nature, I think Japanese stuff can often be really effective for me as a viewer in that way because it does kind of circumvent conventional logic and sort of daytime mundane thinking and gets really into that more unconscious or oniric realm of stuff that takes you to another place.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. They definitely nail that with the Japanese horror and stuff. Like I said, slow pace, heavy.
yeah,
You don't know where it's gonna go. I like that.
yeah. Another one that was left an impression for me was this Dutch Danish film. Is it? I can't remember the title now. Is it Speak No Evil?
Speak No Evil. Yeah, I believe
There
so.
was
Yeah,
an
yeah.
American remake of it, and which I saw subsequently, and it for
No
me
good.
was way
Yeah,
less effective. But
right.
the Dutch Danish one was awesome.
Dude, yeah, that ending. Holy shit.
Oh fuck! But also like the first two-thirds for me was almost like Curb Your Enthusiasm in a way where it was just like this really uncomfortable social satire and it made me cringe and chuckle in equal measure.
Mhm.
But then as you see the characters slowly spinning out and the disintegration, especially of the antagonist into this super hostile psychopath, that was really something. And then again, yeah, the ending uh,
Fuck.
much like The Exorcist, actually, was without a lot of sound. There was no score happening at that time. And the horror of that final event was made all the more impactful because it wasn't a lot of quick jump cuts in the editing, and there was something that was so mundane about the way the people were enacting this that made it that much more effective because it's like, oh, this is for them, this is nothing.
Yeah.
And obviously for the people it was being inflicted on, it was like the worst thing that could happen. Um, and I watched that with my wife and she was like, nope, I never want to see that again. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and for me, I think that it definitely straddled the difficult line where I was like almost too much for me. And again, like the child endangerment thing is much harder for me as a parent now, but I thought it was so well done and was not without I don't want to say a moral because it's not a tale of morality necessarily, but it had some substance to it. It wasn't just for the sake of the sadism of it. It really,
Hmm.
it had some real thought behind it, both in terms of the meaning as well as the way it was executed. So I thought that was excellent.
Yes, and that's where the American one failed. And I don't understand why they remade it. It was unnecessary, like most American remakes are, but this one especially was unnecessary. And they
Yeah,
totally
I
took away
mean,
the venom out of the movie. It was like very predictable, and like the ending
yeah,
is totally
yeah,
different. I'm like,
totally.
this is
Yeah.
garbage, man.
I know, and I talked to some people who saw the American one first, and they're like, "Oh, I thought it was good," and I was like, "I
Oh
don't.
God.
I mean,
They don't
whatever.
know any better though. They haven't
Everybody's
seen
got
the
an
original.
opinion.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an opinion, but I just like everything that was effective about the original was completely lost in the translation.
Yeah, totally, man. And I wasted all that time watching the remake just because I didn't have nothing else to watch when it came out. I was like, okay, cool. I'll give it a shot, whatever. And I was like, God
I was
damn it.
on an airplane with nothing else to do, so I was like, sure. But yeah, honestly, I didn't expect it to be good, and in that way, I wasn't disappointed.
That's always a good thing. I just recently started. I was watching a movie the other day. Let me see what I gave it real quick. I'm pulling up my internet movie database thing. It was something I was given a chance to. I was like, I'll give it a shot. Whatever. It's on. HBO or something. And let's see how it is. Oh, it was the new Mummy movie. Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Have you heard
Uh-huh.
about that one?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, absolute fucking, it was horrible, man. I made it to 30 minutes, and usually I'm pretty good. I'm like, I tough it out, but I was like,
Yeah.
dude, horrible. He's the guy that remade the Wolfman recently,
Okay.
very recently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that one either.
I haven't seen that either. Nope.
The Wolfman is like a mutated. He looks like the Fly. Jeff
Okay.
Goldblum's the Fly. That's what the
Yeah,
Wolfman
yeah.
looks like, and I was like,
Yep.
it's not a Wolfman, not at
Yeah.
all. Like what is this shit? And he
Yeah.
did the same with the Mummy. Like the Mummy is not really a mummy at all. It's this girl who's been kidnapped for like 10 years, and they put her in this like tomb and shit. And they did have her wrapped
Oh,
up.
right. Okay. I saw a preview for this, but I didn't actually see the movie.
She looks like was it Sloth from the Goonies?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this takes me right out of it, man. I'm like, what is this crap? So I give it like a 3 out of 10, and I'm usually not that mean. I was like,
Yeah.
this is bad. You wasted my time.
I'm kind of like you in this in the sense that I will tough most things out. Like if I've started something, I'll follow through and I can find something of value even in a movie I don't like.
Mm,
But because my viewing time is limited, I tend to try to just watch stuff that trusted sources, almost always friends of mine who I have similar tastes with, have recommended.
mm.
Um, what did I see recently? Oh, I was thinking of Bring Her Back.
Oh, it's a good one.
As far as more contemporary stuff goes, that one I thought was quite effective. And also, it was not entirely unique, but it wasn't something that I had seen a million times before. I didn't know where it was going.
Right.
Uh, and again, as I was saying earlier, like horror movies can be fun just for the creatures of the gore or whatever, but when there's actually like, when it's a well-rounded film overall, it makes it even more compelling for me. And the woman who played the foster mom in that I thought was great. She was really effective and was such a fucking creep in that.
She was. He was like
But
totally hitting on that kid, like the adopted like son or whatever. Like they were totally. There's like a love thing going on there in the background. It's totally
there's
creepy.
something weird. And she, a lot of times in horror, the thing that I struggle with villains is they're either just totally ham-fisted and overacted, or they're just one-dimensional. And her character in that was really complex and layered, and that was one of the things that made her so effective. She was believable when she was like, consoling. She was believable when she was employing the psychologically manipulative techniques that she was using to kind of break the kids down. And then she was effective in her display of sorrow at the end about the loss of her child, which was obviously what brought her to being able to do all this stuff to begin with.
Mhm.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
Most recently, you've probably seen like trailers for this though. The Back Room. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I've heard about it, and it is showing here on the island one night only, and it happens to be when I am otherwise engaged. But I'm curious about it, and the concept reminded me of this book I really enjoyed called The House of Leaves.
Oh, I've
Uh,
heard of that one. I've never read that, but I've heard so many good things about that one.
Yeah, this actually was recommended to me. We were in the studio, Isis was in the studio with this band Areogram doing a collaborative album, and they recommended that book to me, and I read it, and I found it really interesting. The formatting of the book is weird, where there's parts where the text gets skewed in different places on the page, and there's like lines of text around the main body of text. And so the way in which the book itself is formatted is kind of like a cool experiment in terms of how you engage with it. But then the concept of it too is like this idea of continually morphing architecture where rooms appear or disappear or expand and contract. It essentially is like an ever-moving labyrinth. And I don't know much about the story of Backrooms, but apparently that's part of the premise as well. And somebody told me that the director was partially inspired by House of Leaves, so I'm curious to see it.
Yeah, and he's only I think 19, and
Yeah,
he
that's
came up with this.
wild.
It's insane, man. And you can go on YouTube and watch the original videos that inspired the movie that he did. Kane
Uh,
Pixel's his name, Kane Pixel.
Uh-huh.
and he's got all the movies up on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And dude, it is like I don't know how such a young person can draw like so much inspiration from the stuff we grew up with as a kid that kind of traumatized us, like the empty malls, like the empty stores, like the Kmart's and all that aren't around anymore. Those
Yeah.
type of things. It's like he was there, man. Like it's pretty scary. I'm like, dude, this is a shit I dream about, man. Like those giant empty warehouses, like all this nostalgia stuff. Like yeah, it's something, man. It really got me, and I've been following the Backrooms videos for years now, and so
Uh-huh.
I already knew about him and stuff. And the
Yeah.
movie fucking killed it, man. It's like a 10 out of 10.
I'm always apprehensive when something has been really hyped, and so that movie and Obsession have been two movies that people have been talking about a lot lately. But I'm also not like I'm not so susceptible to it that I will go into it with the total bias, but there have been a few times where shit was so hyped and I saw it and I was like, really? Like I
Yeah.
remember so many people talking about Hereditary before I saw it, and it was fine, uh, but I wish I had heard nothing about it before I saw it because it's hard for me to separate. It was hard for me at the time to separate what I was expecting and had heard
Hmm.
from the experience of actually watching it. And you were talking earlier about having seen a movie when you were like up late at night and kind of sleep deprived. And I do think that sometimes, maybe many times even, the mood that you're in can have a lot to do with the experience of watching a movie or listening to a record. And sometimes I've been convinced that something I saw was a piece of shit, and then I'll rewatch it and be like, oh, I think I just wasn't in the mood for it when I
Right.
saw it. And so there have been things that occasionally I have revisited because I thought that maybe there was something there or something that I missed. And I think Hereditary is one of those things I want to go back and rewatch it and see if I have a different experience with it the second time around.
Yeah, dude, I definitely recommend that. I recently did a rewatch of that with my wife, who's never seen it before, and she
Uh-huh.
didn't know about the whole headless scene.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
yeah, I think I traumatized. She's like, "Yeah, I'm good. That was a great movie, but I'll never watch that again." Like, I totally understand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw that and that happened, I was like, "What the fuck, man?" I'm like, "That's pretty brutal for like a somewhat mainstream movie."
Sure, yeah. This is totally not at all related. Well, it is in a way because I hadn't heard much hype about it, so I was able to see it with no real expectation, but it was the short um that Panos, what's his last name? The
Oh,
guy
Panos Cosmatos,
yeah, the short that he did for that series. Um
the
none of the
Cabinet of
rest of which,
Curiosities.
yeah, yeah, none of the
Yeah,
rest of which I saw, but I thought that his short and that was great.
it
Uh,
was the best one
and
on it.
and it reminded me at times of Kubrick, and that was not a bad thing. It didn't feel like it was indebted in a bad way where it felt like a ripoff. It was just more like the concept of this place that in some way could potentially exist, but was also otherworldly enough to really transport you there and unsettle you. And I thought that was a really good one. And I haven't seen, I don't have enough time to view stuff or maybe even enough motivation to dig into a lot of short films, but I thought that that was, as a standalone short form piece, very effective.
Agreed. And I don't know if you can see behind me right now, but on my mantle, I have a Mandy shrine back there because Mandy's my
Uh-huh.
favorite film. And that's just some of the shit I have. I have crap everywhere, man. Like Panos Cosmatos is like a fucking god to me. Like Mandy is my all-time favorite film.
That's cool. And it's funny you were talking about your partner having seen a movie with you and being like, "No, I'm good," after one view. And um, I'm friends with and have worked with this producer, Randall Dunn, who did a lot of the music stuff for Mandy. And he
Mm,
was working in a studio in Seattle on a lot of that music. And he was working on the songs that the antagonist made, like his folk record that he plays in that kind of pivotal scene. And he was like,
yeah.
I need some female background vocals for that. So he tapped my wife Faith to do some vocals with our friend Monica. So they're the backup singers on that song.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she was excited to be a part of it just because it was like a fun project. But then I was like, I had seen the movie. I was like, all right, let's watch the movie. And we got like a third of the way into it, and she's like, I don't think this movie's for me. I can't handle this. And so she didn't even get to the scene in which that song that she's a part of played, which
Oh
I thought
no.
was funny. I was like, if I had a song in this movie, I would totally tough it out to get there.
Hell yeah.
But then we watched it again last year, and again it was like what we were just talking about. I think she was finally in the mood for it, and she loved it. So it was cool to be able to see that too. Where I was like, I that was probably my third time seeing that, and getting to see it with her for her first and full second time was a pretty fun thing because she and I really like watching movies together, but it's not something we often have time to do.
That's cool, man. Because Mandy to me is a good judge of character. Like, do you like Mandy? Like, oh, that movie sucks. I'm like, oh, interesting. Yeah, I wonder what the rest of your taste is like. It's
Yeah,
like
I don't think her feeling was that it sucked for sure. It was more just like she wasn't in the mood for it, and she felt like the first time she saw it, it wasn't for her. But yeah, like I said, sometimes you got to do things a couple times to figure them out.
that's killer, man. Yeah, I named my new musical project Abraxas Horn, a play on a horn of Abraxas.
Oh,
You know what I
nice.
mean? I was so
Yeah,
fucking inspired, and I'm like, dude, I got to do something in this realm of like electronic, like black metally weird shit. And I'm like, Braxas Horn. I'm like,
yeah,
so it's like a total homage to fucking Mandy.
nice.
That movie has done a lot for me in life. It's like, and it's such a newer film too to be like my favorite. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
nice. Something can impact you that way because again, the formative stuff is sometimes the thing that has the biggest place for you, or I should say for me. Some of
Mhm.
those formative things will never be usurped by newer things, but every once in a while, something new will come up and really leave a lasting impression.
Are you? I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you're a fan of David Lynch, correct?
For sure, yeah,
Yeah. Lost
absolutely.
Highway, man. That's I classify it as a horror movie, and that really changed my outlook on things. Like it did something to me, man, because it's such a like a I know it's like a vision of a perfect nightmare. It's just
Yeah,
so dark
yeah.
and haunting, and man, so good.
Yeah. And I think, as I was saying earlier, the definition of horror can be broad,
Hmm.
broader than what often it is conventionally associated with. And I think his movies are interesting in that way because they do straddle the line of horror without going into that more typical territory. And not to keep harping on this, but things that have a dreamlike quality to them often really appeal to me. And I think that's part of the reason why he was and is such an important filmmaker. And when I think about Lynch, I'm also kind of reminded of some of the musicians that I have been most inspired by, where it's obvious that the person has a very complete and thorough vision, and it is apparent in every aspect of what they do. And that was very clear with Lynch, from his choice of actors to the way he approached dialogue to the way he shot things, the music that was used in conjunction with the imagery, every aspect of what he does is part of this very complete and cohesive vision. And
Hmm.
I think that's another reason again why I like Kubrick so much because he's very much the same in that way, and also well outside the horror realm for the most part. The Coen brothers,
Oh
there's
yeah.
nothing about what any of those folks do that feels like it is imbalanced with everything else. It's all has to work together and in a very fluid way. And yeah, Lynch and his ability to conjure the unconscious or the subconscious in the dream world is really pretty amazing. And I've been rewatching a lot of his films since he passed. And some of them are things I haven't seen in a long time, and it's been really great to revisit them. Um, from this distance, and at this point, I think I've come to appreciate Mulholland Drive the most of
Oh yeah.
anything of his.
It's a good one.
I really appreciate the totally kind of asymmetrical, unconventional storytelling of his later films. But Mulholland Drive, for me, kind of hits that real sweet spot between his early films where there was a more cohesive or more straightforward narrative and his later films which are way more abstract.
Mm-hmm.
uh yeah, that one's something else and definitely has a few pretty horrific moments in it.
The scariest moment for me in Mulholland Drive is the scene when they're in the restaurant and they're
Oh
talking
yeah, the
about
guy
like,
behind the dumpster.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's Bonnie Aarons, plays the nun. You ever seen the nun movies? That's who plays that. Bonnie Aaron. She's been on the show before, and I had to ask her
Okay.
about that. I'm like, that's one of the scariest fucking scenes out of anything I've ever seen because it's just like so right there in your face, out of nowhere. Like
Yeah.
again, total nightmare logic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
she's
and I
super nice, by the way. She's just really cool and down to earth. I'm like, oh, you're the nun. I'm like, that's
yeah,
cool.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I was talking about earlier, the stuff and why it affected me was I was convinced that the movie itself was going to become, real in my actual life. And I think that that's part of the reason, especially that scene that you just referenced in Mulholland Drive is so effective because the guy is retelling his nightmare, and as he's telling it, it comes true or it bleeds into the waking world. And
Mhm.
I like that about Lynch too, where it's like a lot of the time his characters are having visions or they're having dreams or they're occupying two realities simultaneously, and then these realities are interwoven with one another. And I think that's a pretty profound thing to dig into, and it in some way maybe even a pretty ancient idea, like how a lot of older cultures valued dream life and considered it to be as real as our waking life. And I think that for Lynch, that was probably true also.
Oh yeah, 100%. Especially with Twin Peaks. Here's a little plug for me and Mike Hill. We do a sub series called The Black Lodge, and we're going through all the seasons of Twin Peaks and breaking shit down, giving
Uh-huh.
facts about it. So we already got the first season's done. We just got done
Yeah.
with that. So if
Nice.
you want to rewatch Twin Peaks again, like just revisiting that, like
Yeah.
it's so dark, and again, coming from the dream logic stuff, like it's so heavy, and there's so many like different things we're finding out that we didn't see like the first thousand times watching Twin Peaks. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I rewatched some of it. I rewatched Fire Walk with Me in this kind of post David Lynch's death
Hmm.
uh queue of mine. I rewatched that, and man, what a great piece of work that is too. Something which obviously upset a lot of Twin Peaks fans and is way darker than the series. And my wife and I were really excited about The Return when it first aired, and we watched the whole thing and loved it, and watched it again some years after that and appreciated it all over again and saw things in it that I didn't really catch the first time. And I think that's another reason why some of Lynch's stuff has been so enduring for me, is that it merits repeat watches. You don't get it all the time, and it's
No,
functioning on so many different levels that it really it pays off to give it that deeper investment.
agreed. And this might be a strange opinion, but I do enjoy David Lynch's Dune. I thought his version of Dune was pretty cool. It's just so weird and like,
It is weird. It is weird, and I rewatched that too. And it's funny because there's all this stuff about how they really wanted it to be a competitor to Star Wars, and it's like the one of the opening scenes where that I forget what the creature is called, but it's wheeled into the throne room.
oh yeah,
And it's basically like a ultra deformed talking vagina,
yeah,
uh, surrounded by like these things that kind of remind me of the Cenobites actually.
yeah,
And I wonder actually in retrospect if that was part of the inspiration. But anyway, it's like that's one of the opening scenes, and I'm like, how did anyone think this was going to have the appeal that Star Wars has? This is the opening. Like
yeah.
this is gonna unsettle anybody who's expecting a mainstream sci-fi movie. And I do think that I think it's a problematic film in some ways, but I don't put all of that on Lynch by any means, because it sounds like there was a lot of meddling from the
Yeah,
studio, and a lot of ways in which he had a vision that was thwarted. And it's one of those intriguing what if things to ponder. Like, what would it have been like if he had actually had his way with it? And also, what if he had gotten around to making the sequel that he had written at least a partial script for? So, yeah,
yeah, man, yeah. David Lynch, man, that was a hard one when he died. I was
it
at work when
was.
it happened and stuff, and I was on Facebook. I happened to pull Facebook. I was taking a break from Facebook. Actually, I'm like, I'm not on social media much. I'm going to take a break. Pull the
Yeah,
fucking phone out. David Lynch is dead. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, dude. That one hit really hard.
it felt like a big loss, and I'm not like I don't mean this in a cynical way, but celebrity death is something that I don't feel usually emotionally impacted by. Even when
Yeah,
it's people who have made something that I really enjoy, it's like, yeah, you made something I enjoy, but you're not a person I know personally. So it's hard for me to like, when I see lots of RIP stuff on social media from every person who has an opinion about what this person's life meant or whatever, I'm kind of like, okay, whatever.
yeah,
But for me, the David Lynch one really was affecting, and it really felt like a light went out in the universe. And I think it's because he was such a special visionary, and he also seemed to be a pretty decent person from what I could tell.
yeah.
All the, you hear stories about a lot of famous directors, and who made great stuff and what horrible shits they were to work with. And Lynch seemed to be pretty much beloved by everyone he worked with. And you've seen a lot of these, or there's a lot of these kind of behind the scenes, candid uh, pieces of footage of him with his actors and actresses, and there's a genuine rapport and affection that's visible between them.
Mhm.
And for me, a great artist doesn't necessarily have to be a good person, but it really helps me appreciate their work even more to know that it's like, oh, this guy was well loved, and it kind of it undoes that stereotype of the sort of dictatorial, aggressive visionary who, is only able to make what he makes because he or she is like a ruthless cutthroat, and
Mhm.
that's how they were able to execute this thing. I don't believe in that idea that you have to be a hard ass and treat everyone like shit in order to achieve your vision.
No,
And
not at
Lynch,
all.
Lynch is proof of that.
I
But
totally agree
again,
with that.
I don't really know him. Maybe he was a bad person, but it doesn't seem like it from what I can tell.
No, I've never heard anything bad from him, like no scandals, none of that kind of stuff, which is a
Yep.
rarity nowadays. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, that was it was like a light left the planet or something. Like
for
I
sure.
felt this. It was so weird. I'm like, and I was talking to some of my friends about. It. I was like, dude, do you feel the same way I do? I feel like shit right now. I'm like, yeah, we feel the same way, and it lasted for like a
Yeah, for
while.
sure.
It was so
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I definitely mourned that one for sure. And more more selfishly and entirely unrealistically, I don't have aspirations of working with, famous people by any stretch of the imagination. But Lynch was one person where I was like, man, I hope someday, somehow, I get to contribute something, however small, to a Lynch project, or even just to meet him and, just say hi and shake his hand. And when that happened, it was like, well, a lot of dreams don't come true. And for me, that's obviously going to be one of them.
Oh man, something kind of recently happened with me besides David Lynch. Tony Todd. I was getting ready to have him on the podcast stuff. We were talking on Twitter, like sharing cat pictures and shit, like
Uh,
Candyman and stuff. And
yeah,
dude, he died like a couple years after kind of getting in contact with him through Twitter.
yeah,
I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, man. It was gonna happen. Like, I was gonna have Tony Todd on here and stuff. I really wanted to just talk to him. He's a cat
yeah,
person
for
like
sure.
me, and I love Candyman. I was like,
Yeah.
God damn it, that was another big one.
I'm gonna need to wrap it up here because I'm on childcare duty here in a moment. So
Okay,
uh,
yeah, no, I
I
saw the
wondered if
time
you
there.
had, I wondered if you had anything that you'd been wanting to get to that we hadn't gotten to yet.
I think we covered a lot of stuff that I wanted to get to, so I feel pretty good with what we talked about and stuff. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to this year to see that's coming out?
Um, well, we talked about Cure earlier, and I think Kurosawa has a new one.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I think he's had some movie that's never gonna be available on streaming. And I'm like, I don't know if there's gonna be a theater that plays that anywhere near me, but I would love to see it. But yeah, definitely you mentioned Backrooms. I'm looking forward to that. Obsession as well. I think those are the two. A lot of people have been talking about those being pretty good. So
Yes, good.
I'm curious about those for sure.
And keep your eyes peeled for Where, the new Robert Eggers film that comes out Christmas time this
Right.
year.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yep.
if you're a fan of Robert Eggers, but
I am. I am. I haven't seen Nosferatu. I'm curious to see it. A
he's
lot
right
of
around my shoulder right now. If you look this way, is not. I
Nice.
paid a lot of money for that. Yeah,
A lot of people kind of knocked that one, which makes me almost more intrigued to see it.
it's great,
Uh,
dude. Yeah,
so I'm curious about that, and just going back to Herzog's Nosferatu, that's such a great film. And again, Herzog's one of those directors who really has a complete vision, and I love his team up with Popol Vuh, whose music I like outside of their work with him, but
hmm,
also in conjunction with that movie. Their soundtrack is such an amazing piece of work. So yeah, I would love someday to do some soundtrack work. I think that is a goal of many musicians. So
yeah,
maybe one of these days.
yeah. Same here, man. But Aaron, this has been fucking great. It's been great talking horror with you, man. So we can
Oh,
definitely
thanks.
do this again. Anytime you want to talk horror movies, hit me
Awesome.
up or I hit you up and we do something different and stuff. And
Yeah, there's probably like 800 movies I wanted to talk about that we didn't get to, but that could be for another installment.
yeah, man, we do a part two, and I'll also send you some of the podcast things I'm doing with like Mike Hill with the Twin Peaks stuff and all, and I'll also
Cool.
send you a link to me and Jeff stuff too. So
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, man, and yeah, you have a good rest of your night and stuff. I don't know if you're on the East or West Coast. I have no
I'm on the
idea.
West Coast, so it's
West Coast.
only about 5:30 here. Yep.
Okay, cool. It's like 9 o'clock here almost. So
Yep. Yeah.
awesome,
All
man.
right,
Well, it's been
Brandon.
great talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yep, and take it easy.
You too.